Chapter 11. All men are like pigs' hooves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, I'd rather be called stupid than to be stuck with the blood-sucking Mu family. The Mu family had a hold over her. If she were to be with Bao Junyan, then she would be under the Mu's control for the rest of her life. And the greatest mission in her life was to cut off all ties with the Mu family. Recalling that unscrupulous family, Li Meng shook her head and retorted, I was wrong. You better work hard to save money so you can flee as far as you can. That's right. This is the only truth. She then sat down in front of the mirror to remove her makeup. She had originally intended to stay over at Li Meng's place. However, after bumping into Bao Junyan tonight, she dared not stay out anymore. After showering and changing into a fresh set of clothes, she returned home. By the time Bao Junyan had returned home after a busy day at work, she could be seen to be occupied with learning English pronunciation. He glanced at his watch, it was almost 12 midnight. Thinking of those flapper girls he encountered earlier in the night, he was contented to have such a hard-working and studious wife in contrast. He walked up and reached out to pat her head while saying some words of encouragement. All of a sudden, Mu Huan stood up and grabbed him by his hand. However, she immediately jumped aside like a frightened little bunny with a look of horror when she realized that it was him. Bao Junyan. Hubby. You've returned. *T. Why were his footsteps so quiet? She had initially thought that a burglar was going to assault her, so she almost threw him over her shoulder. If that had happened, it would have meant the end for her. Bao Junyan. Did I scare you? She looked down. No, frowning at her insincere words, he extended his slender and broad palm to hook her chin and make her look at him. Am I scary? She was so startled by this question that she dared not utter a sound. No. Not scary. Looking directly into his eyes made her feel ill at ease somewhat, so she'd stammered in response. Bao Junyan. Obviously, she must be so frightened to stammer in this way. When she saw him furrowing his brows in displeasure, she clarified hurriedly, You're not scary, hubby. It's true. You aren't frightening at all. And furthermore, not only are you not scary, you're so handsome, too. You're so handsome that it makes my heart pound faster. The thought that he might disown her, his Mrs. Bao, because he did not like to see her in this way was terrifying. Bao Junyan. You can check my heartbeat if you don't believe me. She grabbed his hand and put it to her chest for him to check. Bao Junyan. Can you feel it? Isn't it beating fast? She stared sheepishly at him. Her pair of clear, sparkling big eyes were pleading for his agreement. The man's orbs turned pensive and became darker. She did not realize that he was starting to have his suspicions. Thinking that he was still unhappy over what happened earlier, she grabbed him and planted kisses all over his face. Hubby, you're really not frightening. I actually find you handsome, really handsome. Before she had adequate ability to stand on her own, she needed to fortify this precious status of being Mrs. Bao. Facts have proven that all men were like pigs' hooves. Once in the arms of a woman, they would no longer bother with many other things. This was a conclusion Mu Huan had on the next morning when she woke up. She was one who could not bear with hunger pangs, hence, her growling tummy refused to let her continue with her sleep. She was about to get off the bed despite her sleepiness when she heard running water from the bathroom out of the blue. That gave her a start. Hasn't Bao Junyan gone to the office yet? Bov. Chapter 12. You do not have to try so hard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. By the time Bao Junyan came out from the shower, the tender and youthful-looking woman was already decently dressed and standing in front of him like a bright and delicate flower. The sight made the man narrow his eyes and crease his brows. He disliked such feelings of losing control of himself. The sudden appearance of a frown on his face baffled Mu Huan. Thinking that he was upset over something, she hastily approached him. "Hubby, will you be heading to the office later or are you off today? Shall I prepare the clothes you'll be wearing?" He could tell that his wife had been trying her utmost best to please him. He was, of course, aware of the reasons behind the muse letting her marry him and her careful treatment of him. Still, he did not like her behaving this way. "I did not get married to have a divorce later. As long as you behave yourself and not cause trouble, you'll always remain as Mrs. Bao. So, you don't have to try so hard to please me. Everything would be fine as long as she did not stir up trouble and act out of line." The woman got startled. She had already put in so much effort into behaving normally around him, but he could still see through her disguise. It looked like she would have to be even more careful in the future. She bowed her head and replied, "I wasn't." The man chuckled helplessly as he looked at her fluffy head. She still dared to deny it after behaving in such a manner. Never mind. She would eventually get tired and lower her guard around him. "I'll be heading to work after breakfast." "All right. I shall go prepare your clothes." She hastily turned to the direction of their cloakroom. Despite having been married to him for quite some time already, the actual time they spent together was really little other than the time in bed. Thus, it gave her the notion that being a virtuous wife was no sweat at all. It was only today that she felt the mounting pressure on her. How she wished her husband could head off to work every day before she wakes up, to return only late at night. After she prepared his clothes, she made up an excuse and hurriedly left the room. Bao Junyin could tell that she was hiding from him and did not dare to stay in the same space as him, but he did not expose her. After all, it was only natural for the young lady, having married a stranger, to feel frightened for a while. Mu Huan bumped right into Mu Kurson as soon as she stepped out of the room. "You slut! You've been seducing my Junyin again." The latter's room was next to their master bedroom, so it drove her mad hearing the sounds of their lovemaking all night. "What do you mean by, your Junyin? If there's a problem with your brain, then go see the doctor. Don't go crazy here." The older sister slapped away the hand that was grabbing her clothes. "Go crazy. Mu Huan, do you truly think that you, a fallen woman, can always be Mrs. Bao? Dream on. I'm telling you, quickly help pair me and Bao Junyin up if you know what's good for you. I'll let you and your granny off easy then. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death. Mu Kurson, can't you have the slightest bit of self-awareness? Please be aware that you're only a madwoman, not a god. Did this half-sister consider herself to be God and think that she could plan out the rest of her life? You be *tch. Mu Kurson gnashed her teeth in anger but did not dare do anything to the woman when her husband was just inside the bedroom. Rather than spouting nonsense here, you might as well return to your room to apply more makeup on your face. You won't be able to seduce Bao Junyin with that one face of yours. Starving, Mu Huan could not be bothered to argue with the other woman any longer. Even though Mu Kurson was mad with anger, she felt that what her older sister said was right. And so, after shooting her a glare, she returned to her room to dress up nicely. Dining room. This was her second time meeting the man. Still, she could not control her pounding heart. He was simply so handsome that she wanted to just throw herself at him. Chapter 13. Are you that stupid? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Out of the many hunks and male celebrities she'd met since she got acknowledged as the Mu family's young missy, none can be compared to even a fraction of Bao Junyin. She felt that nothing in this world could match up to him. She wanted him. In fact, she wanted him badly. Bao Junyin. She leaned in closer to him as she deliberately bent down to expose her boobs. Even her voice was dripping with sweetness. Frowning, The man turned and gave his wife a look that said, "Is your sister mentally sound?" Mu Huan nearly burst out laughing when she met his gaze. She felt the urge to give him 2 thumbs up and praise him for being so smart that he could actually see through her sister's character with just a glance. However, this would not conform to her present image of a virtuous wife. Hence, she could only hold in her laughter, bow her head, and pretend that she did not understand his meaningful look. Bao Junyan. Try this, Junyan. This is delicious. Despite not receiving any response from him, Mu Kurson was not discouraged at all. Instead, she proceeded to pick up a prawn dumpling and put it onto his plate. In her sweet fantasies, they would be sharing an indirect kiss if he ate the food that she picked up with her chopsticks. Alas, he pushed the plate to his wife right away. Enraged, she immediately shot a glare at the latter. Damn B*****. Mu Huan. How on earth is this my fault? She's indeed hopelessly stupid. Junyan. The relentless woman continued to pick up more dishes for him. Bao Junyan responded sullenly, "I'm your older sister's husband. You should be calling me brother.in.law." The air around them instantly changed along with the darkening of his face. This caused her hand to quiver in shock, which made the vegetables she picked up with her chopsticks drop on the table. Mu Huan, come to my study after you're done eating. With that, the man stood up and left. The younger sister flew into a rage as soon as he left. Mu Huan, you be****. Did you talk bad about me in front of Junyan? She reckoned that the man's cold attitude must be a result of her sister's doings. Need I do that? Scoffed the other woman. Is there a need for me to do something about you when you're the one who delivered a subpar performance? Mu Huan truly felt that their grandma's IQ had deteriorated. To think that the elderly woman would actually believe that her half-sister was capable of seducing the man. I'm warning you. You'll be in for a life worse than death if I can't get him, the latter threateningly said. If you've got the time to spout nonsense here, you might as well go study how to successfully seduce a man. She found it a complete waste of time to be talking to her sister. So, in order not to waste any more of her precious time, she did not mind giving her some useless advice that she could try with no success. Despite her fury, the other woman could not help finding that what she said was true. After Mu Huan somewhat filled her stomach, she hastily proceeded to the study lest her husband gets upset from waiting for her too long. She found the man to be on the phone upon entering the study, and so, she quietly stood aside like a dummy, not daring to make any sound. It was only when he'd ended the call and indicated for her to come forward that she approached him. What's wrong with that sister of yours? He had bitten down the urge to kick the woman out of his house only due to the fact that she was his wife's sister. What do you mean? She hung her head low in feigned incomprehension. Are you that stupid? He lifted her chin. He truly disliked her habit of looking down while they conversed. She, on the other hand, hated him doing that. With her chin lifted, she would be facing him directly. That would make her lies be easily seen through. Since she was unable to lie now, she confessed, even if I'm not stupid, I can't help it. Chapter 14. Good Husband. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, didn't she move in because you were lonely and wanted a companion? When his wife called to inform him about her sister moving in with them for a while, he did not oppose it as he thought that she might have felt bored being alone at home since he was usually busy with work. However, judging from how her sister behaved earlier, he found that something seemed amiss. No, then just send her packing. He disliked having outsiders in his home, so he rarely hired servants as well. Mu Huan was eager for her sister to leave, too, as it would mean that she'd have more freedom. Unfortunately, if she were to send her off now, her family would surely seek trouble with her and go back on their words about finding her granny a specialist. Hubby, just let her live here as she wishes. If you don't like it, just ignore her, alright. She cast a pitiful look at him. The man narrowed his eyes slightly. Don't you know why she wants to live here? I do know about that, but she's my sister. Furthermore, since it's useless chasing her away, we might as well let her stay and give up on her own when she finds that it's just a futile attempt on her part. She paused for a little before gazing up expectantly at him. Hubby, you'll make her give up on you, right? Bao Junyan actually found it hard to say no to her puppy eyes. Still, he said, you might see her as your sister, but she apparently doesn't see you the same way. Despite knowing that he was her brother. In law, Mu Kurson still dared to seduce him outright. It was clear that she had no regard for her sister at all. I know. I'm not so foolish as to treat her as my biological sister. If we don't let her stay, though, I can't account it to my family. Mu Huan bowed her head. The man fell into silence for a while before eventually asking, how long do you intend to let her stay here? 1 month at most, replied the woman immediately. A month was enough for her to report back to her grandma. Fine. Keep in mind, though, that you don't have to suffer grievances. You're my wife, and you don't need to put up with others' attitudes. Knowing that her biological mother died young and that she had a stepmother, he did not want to make things difficult for his little wife and her family. Hence, he just reminded her that she need not fear anyone now. Now that she was his wife, she should not be bullied by her family at all. In fact, the muse should be sucking up to her. Feeling touched, she gushed, noted. Thank you, hubby. As far as she was concerned, Bao Junyan was truly a good and dependable husband. It was just a pity that she could not rely on him. As she was preparing to step out of the house after sending him off, she got stopped by her half-sister. What are you doing? She asked in irritation. Tell me everything he likes, ordered Mu Kurson. Are you stupid? Putting aside the fact that she had no clue about his preferences at all, even if she did know, why would she tell her? Mu Huan, you'd better not antagonize me, the other woman growled. That's what I should be saying to you. Hurry and get lost. She dismissed her with a wave of her hand. Mu Kurson instantly got enraged. I'm telling you, you'd best be useful to me while I need you, or else, you'll suffer real good when Bao Junyan finally finds out how cheap you are. Too lazy to put up with her nonsense, Mu Huan simply sped off on her motorbike, leaving her hopping mad half-sister behind. After fetching Li Meng, they then rushed to their client's home. This said client, Zhao Xian, found out that her boyfriend was actually a married man only when they were about to get married. Even though it pained her very much to do so, she firmly made the tough decision of breaking up with him. The problem now was that this scoundrel ex-boyfriend claimed that the marital home, which she paid for wholly with her own money, was his. It was previously bought under his name as she, a non-local, could not buy an apartment using her name. Chapter 15. I did not beat anyone up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios feeling indignant at having been cheated by him, she wanted to recover her lost money. Earlier on, Mu Huan received a distress call from Zhao Xian saying that her ex-boyfriend brought a gang over to pick trouble with her, so she sped all the way there on her motorbike. Upon arrival, they found the man's wife beating their client and tugging her hair. You slut! How shameless of you, a mistress, to occupy my house. I shall kill you. Because of the word mistress, the onlookers not only did not step in to help her, but they even pointed the finger of blame at her and said that she deserved it. The humiliation, embarrassment, and agony she felt made her harbor the thought to end her life. After spending all her savings and giving the man all of her, she ended up in this state instead. Upon seeing this chaotic situation, Mu Huan and Li Meng immediately rushed forward and pulled the other woman away from her. They initially pitied the former, seeing that she was a victim as well, but later, they found out that the couple was actually habitual offenders. The husband would use his handsome looks and good job to cheat women of their love and money, while the wife would then pop out later to scold the women for being a mistress, making those women lose both their body and their wealth. "Bro, they're vixens as well. Beat them up," shouted the wife to the gang of people she came with. The gang rushed up to them all at once. And so, both parties got into a fight before they could even get a chance to speak up. Everyone eventually ended up being brought to the police station for questioning due to an anonymous police report. "We were beaten up by her," yelled an injured man who pointed an accusing finger at Mu Huan. They had been brought to the police station many times before, but this was the first time they were actually here as victims. The fight had already ended by the time the police arrived to the scene. So, when they accused her of beating them up, no one believed a word of what they said. More accurately said, no one was able to believe that this tender and adorable-looking young lady was capable of beating them up to such a degree. Furthermore, it was a group of people. However, the police still had to go through the procedures. Looking at her, the officer asked, "Miss, were they beaten up by you?" His voice involuntarily took on a gentle tone. As the lady in front of him was simply too delicate and cute, he could not help feeling that she would get startled should he raise his voice a notch louder. "No," she solemnly answered. "D*MNU. You still have the cheek to say no in front of so many people." An agitated young lad shot to his feet and cussed at her, only to get smacked into sitting back down by the officer watching over him. Silence. No longer daring to rebuke the woman, the lad grumbled, "If these injuries weren't inflicted by you, tell us, how did they come about? Don't tell me we beat ourselves up." The officers were, in fact, dying to know the answer, too. Even though the lady did not seem like a fighter, there was still the question of where their injuries came from. "Well, you beat yourselves up," she replied cutely. The officers. The real victims. What the f***ck? How can she say that without batting an eyelid? With that adorable face, too. Mu Huan continued, "Sir, there are surveillance cameras at the scene. The footage can prove my innocence." Just then, the person in charge of retrieving the security footage returned. The way everyone looked at her changed after watching it. Their gazes were inscrutable. Looking as harmless as before, she asked, "I didn't beat anyone up, right? Sir?" Chapter 16. This is no simple lady. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. She indeed did not beat up anyone. All she did was deftly grab someone from the opponent's side to withstand the attacks from their accomplices. This meant that their injuries were indeed inflicted by themselves. Still, this lady was no simple person for having such nimbleness and dexterity. Honestly speaking, Mu Huan would still be fine even if she had beaten up these guys, since she would merely be acting out of self-defense. However, it would take her a longer procedural time and her parents would be informed. Hence, after seeing that there were surveillance cameras in the area, she decided to act otherwise, which would be less troublesome. In the end, she and her bestie got out just fine. The seriously injured gang, on the other hand, was detained as they were found to have a record upon getting their backgrounds checked. The scumbag ex-boyfriend was fine since he did not join in the fight. His wife, however, cried her lungs out during questioning and said that she merely acted out of anger as she wanted to get her house back, and so, in the heat of the moment, she'd brought the gang with her. As the house was registered in her husband's name, it was considered a matrimonial asset between them. Since it was the case of the legal wife seeking trouble with the mistress, she was let off with a mere warning. After leaving the station, the woman pointed at Zhao Xian and growled, "Don't you feel too smug of yourselves, this be *tch, especially. I shall go sue you tomorrow and let the law forcibly kick you out of my house." The latter's face was immediately drained of all color. Despite being a victim, she was not legally entitled to live in that house. Having been stupid and hopelessly in love, she'd given her money to the love of her life for him to buy them a matrimonial home. However, it ended up with him claiming that it was given to him for spending purposes, not for buying the house. The money used for buying the house was from his own pockets, so it was a matrimonial asset belonging to him and his wife. All in all, as far as the law was concerned, the man's wife could very well win the lawsuit should she sue her. Knowing this, Zhao Xian, therefore, did not go to a lawyer or the police, but rather, sought the help of Mu Huan's know-all agency to recover her lost money. Given the current situation, however, she felt that it was a lost cause. After the couple left, she squatted down and broke down completely. She had sold her old house, terminated her parents' insurance, and emptied all the money she had to buy that house. How was she going to face her parents and how were they going to live on when things had ended up this way? The more she thought about it, the more humiliated and devastated she felt. She then stood up and charged toward the main road. It was fortunate that Mu Huan had quick reflexes, so she managed to pull her back to safety in time. The woman struggled in her arms, wailing, "Don't stop me. Just let me die." She truly had no face to meet people, go home, or even live on. If you die, you'll only be letting that scumbag off easy. Since you've tasked us with this matter, then rest assured that we'll get you back your money. Mu Huan kept a firm hold over her. Sis Xian, he'll surely be overjoyed if you died. Are you willing to let him happily live on with your money? Li Meng asked. But what else can I do? What else can you do? Both of you have already been brought back to the police station, what else can you do in the future? Cried Zhao Xian. Well, we have our own ways. You don't have to worry about this. You just need to trust that we'll get back your money, teach that scumbag a lesson, and make life difficult for him. Replied Mu Huan. Somehow, even though the latter was much younger than she was, Zhao Xian felt an involuntary urge to trust her. Still, as they were leaving, she could not help asking out of her curiosity, how are you going to get back the money? She truly could not think of any possible way to do so. Chapter 17. Taunt you until you contemplate about your life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios' Mu Huan's idea was to mess up and destabilize the douchebag's life. The scumbag had a good job. He was the manager of a major company. Due to his career, girls naturally believed that he was definitely not a liar. Mu Huan first exposed the scumbag's marital status to his company, letting the female co-workers he was dating find out that they had been cheated on and having them cause a scene. Thereafter, she hired a few more women to pretend to be his girlfriends and had them take turns to stir things up at his company, plaguing him with endless scandals. When the douchebag had asked the security officers to prevent female strangers from entering, Mu Huan disguised herself as a pregnant lady to cause a scene at his company. As she was pregnant, the security officers did not dare to stop her as they were afraid to cause any incidents. The pregnancy set-up had a great impact as everyone in the scumbag's company found out about how horrible he had been. Young Feng, how could you treat me this way? You said you would marry me and provide a loving home for our child. You said you would buy us a house, and that's why I sold my old house. I even returned my parents' insurance and spent all the money I have for you to purchase an apartment for us. But now, you are throwing me away and claiming that the house belongs to you. Aren't you forcing me to die? Mu Huan cried and ran toward the window. It scared the workers sitting near the area, who then hurriedly rushed forward and blocked her way. Don't stop her, let her jump. Yang Feng shouted furiously. Manager Yang, you are too much. An employee, who couldn't bear to watch any longer, yelled out bravely. When one person finally spoke, everyone followed after. That's right. Manager Yang, you are really going overboard. Having an affair was shameless enough, but he even lied to this lady and said that he was single and cheated her of her heart and body. Now that he had caused her to be pregnant, he still wanted to cheat her out of her money and force her to her death. This was the strategy of a scum. I've never lied to her, and I definitely didn't cause her pregnancy. Yang Feng repeatedly tried to explain himself. But no matter what he said, no one believed him. This was driving him absolutely crazy. Mu Huan lowered her head and cried out in despair and hurt. I've never wanted to be a third party and break up someone's marriage. Since you are already married, I will never be with you no matter how much pain and suffering I will have to go through. But you can't steal the money for the apartment away from me. If you do that, how will my child and I survive? What child, you be *tch. Yang Feng dashed forward as he tried to tear off Mu Huan's clothes and let everyone have a look at exactly what that thing in her tummy was. Mu Huan screamed and hid behind the crowd in fear. Bao Junyan, who was here to inspect the branch office, furrowed his eyebrows when he saw the commotion. What's going on? The senior management executives who had been following after him broke out into a cold sweat. The head of the branch office was trembling as he hastily hauled an employee over and asked about the matter. It's Manager Yang, he. After hearing about the situation, Bao Junyan glanced and saw how harshly Yang Feng was grabbing the pregnant lady's wrist. His gaze became extremely cold. He turned around to leave after tossing a statement that there was no need for such an employee in their company. Mu Huan, whose back was originally facing him, turned around just as he had left. She skillfully grabbed Yang Feng's wrist painfully, causing him to release his grip on her. Thereafter, she spoke with a threatening voice at a volume that only he could hear. Return the money in 3 days. If not, I will taunt you until you contemplate about life. You be *tch. I'll kill you. Yang Feng exploded. Mu Huan looked at him with a face full of challenge. Come on. I am right here, kill me if you dare. Just as the scum lost all his rationality and tried to attack her, she instantly cowered in fear. Seeing the situation, the crowd instantly barricaded the man, causing the suppressed douchebag to shout even louder. When dealing with such a shameless and roguish individual, she simply had to be even more shameless and roguish. Chapter 18. The more she's afraid, the more it happens. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. The weather in midsummer was really, really hot. Mu Huan was close to getting a heatstroke. After work, she couldn't even wait until she got back to Li Meng's place. She found a public washroom and removed her make-up wig, and the fake tummy latched to her clothes. When she was done with the packing and the two were ready to leave, Li Meng noticed an ice cream shop on the opposite side of the road. That shop's ice cream is super delicious. I'm gonna buy one. I want to have two. Mu Huan had just finished a bottle of ice water, yet she was still not feeling cool. After Li Meng had left to buy the ice cream, Mu Huan stood at the same spot and fanned herself, hoping to cool herself down. To not reveal the fake tummy, she had worn an extremely loose, thick, and long dress, which made her feel extremely hot. Why are you here? A voice suddenly rang above her head. Mu Huan was just about to say, how is it any of your d*mn business? However, she suddenly became aware of something, and her movement turned instantly rigid. She slowly raised her head, stumbling a few steps back in shock when she saw the handsome face. Bao Junyan. Seeing his little wife's reaction toward him, he felt as if he was a fiend. When she realized that her reaction was problematic, Mu Huan hurriedly forced the panic back into her heart and tried her best to act as normal as possible to redeem herself. Hubby, what are you doing here? Don't you have work today? d*mn. She really didn't want to react this way toward him. But after doing something like that earlier, his sudden appearance in front of her made her feel guilty. I came to inspect the branch office. Your branch office is near here. Yes. Mu Huan. She didn't know what else to say to keep the conversation going. After a moment of silence, Bao Junyan reverted to his initial question. Why are you here? I'm shopping. I was shopping near here. Alone. Li Meng was just about to return with 3 ice creams at that moment. However, when she saw Bao Junyan, she was utterly stunned and hurriedly lowered her head, then walked off as if she didn't recognize them. Seeing that Li Meng had left, Mu Huan lowered her head and said, yeah. Bao Junyan looked at Mu Huan, who had her head lowered, and suddenly found the clothes she was wearing to be extremely familiar. They seemed to be the same style and brand that the pregnant lady from earlier was wearing, old and cheap. He then thought about how their closet at home was mostly filled with his clothes and how he basically hadn't seen much of hers. He began to furrow his eyebrows at that. Mu Huan could feel the aura around him darkening and was afraid to raise her head. He couldn't have figured out something, could he? But, with the way she was now, he shouldn't be able to sense anything wrong. Mu Huan couldn't take the pressure. Just when she had summoned enough courage and was about to ask him what's wrong, Bao Junyan spoke up. Go, Bao Junyan said. Ah. Mu Huan was stunned. Didn't you say you were shopping? Oh. Oh. Shopping. I'll head off now to shop. As if relieved from a burden, Mu Huan began to run off. Only to be stopped by the hand by Bao Junyan. Mu Huan's heart began to beat frantically. Hubby. Why did he grab her? Didn't he ask her to go shopping together? Before their marriage, they had only met once during the match-making event. After the marriage, they would meet only at night and did not interact in public. It was no wonder that she was so shocked to see him. Bao Junyan hated the fact that his little wife was afraid of him. Therefore, he realized that it was time that they nurtured their relationship. Ah! Mu Huan was taken aback once again. What did he mean? Did he want to go shopping with her? F***ck. Please let this not be the meaning behind his word. I don't have anything important on this afternoon. Mu Huan. The more she was afraid of something happening, the more it would happen. Chapter 19. Too Rich to be Humane. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios, President, Madam. P.A. Wang returned after taking the car. Mu Huan took this chance to tell him, hubby, I can shop on my own, there's nothing I want to buy, really. You need not accompany me. Go and get busy with your work. He did not reply to her and merely turned to his PA to pass some instructions. P.A. Wang was surprised, his workaholic CEO was going to skip work to accompany his wife for shopping. Still, he did not express his thoughts on his face. After receiving the instructions, he gave a bow to Mu Huan and left. The woman watched, dumbly, as the only person who could take her husband away disappeared from her sight. 1,000 thoughts assaulted her mind all at once. Let's go, said the man, who dipped his head to look at her. Despite the frantic thoughts racing through her mind, she looked up with a pretentious smile that showed she was pleasantly surprised. He watched her overtly fake smile with amusement. Still, he did not say anything and only reached out to caress her head. Somehow, his action made her feel like a pet. Bao Junyan was tall, with long legs. One step of his could easily match 2 of hers. Furthermore, the ill-ease woman was also deliberately distancing herself from him. Soon, there was a considerable distance between them. The man was used to a hectic schedule that waited for no one. However, upon realizing that his wife was falling behind, he stopped and waited for her. She almost howled in desperation when she saw him stopping for her. Seeing each other at night is good enough, isn't it? Why do we need to meet during the day? And worse, we're shopping together. Despite her unwillingness, she knew that she had to please him in order to keep her precious status as his wife. Hence, she dared not tarry and quickly caught up with him. Sorry, hubby. She bowed her head in apology. Inside her heart, she was plotting an excuse to finish off this arduous task. Suddenly, she felt her chin being lifted up, and she was forced to look into his dark and pensive eyes. Startled, she instinctively wanted to retreat but was caught by another big palm hugging her from the back of her waist. She was thrown into his strong and sturdy arms in one sweep. Her heart started to beat furiously in an instant. You don't have to be nervous or be afraid of me. I'm your husband, the man whom you are spending the rest of your life with. His deep and melodious voice reverberated above her head. The gentleness in his tone was like a summer breeze that engulfed her and unconsciously made her let down her guard. I'm not nervous. I'm just not used to it. I'll spend more time with you in the future. Mu Huan. No, no, no. There's really no need for him to spend more time with her. Her poor heart won't be able to take the pressure if he continued to be around her. She thought that she would remain nervous throughout her time with him. But once she entered the mall, her natural instinct for lovely clothes overtook her anxiety. As she looked at the pretty dresses, she could not help stopping to wonder and praise, wow, how beautiful. He followed her gaze and, seeing that the dresses seemed to suit her, decided to pull her into the shop. What are you doing? Seeing that he was about to step into the store, she hurriedly stopped him. Let's go in and buy the clothes. Don't do that. This store is super expensive. Besides, I can't wear these. Let's forget it. The dresses were made of superior materials and cost upwards of 10,000 yuan. These were not made for her. Super expensive. These dresses are only for looking at. She nodded earnestly. Have you forgotten your husband's status? He had nothing except for money. Hence, for things that his wife liked, could she only look without buying. His words took her by surprise. Next time, you don't have to worry when you see anything you like. If you like, you can buy a commercial property every day. Mu Huan. Is this what others mean by too rich to be humane? Chapter 20. Why don't you allow me to buy something for you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. While she was still caught in a daze, he pulled her into the store. Go and try them. No need. There's really no need to. She quickly shook her head. I shouldn't ask for something I don't deserve. He can go about his extravagant ways, but I won't accept anything this expensive without working for it. You're my wife and I'm your husband. Do I need a reason to buy clothes for you? Ha! The last word sounded dangerous, coming from him. Scared, she immediately shook her head again. No need, there's no need for a reason. Indeed. The dress suited her very well. She looked so much more attractive after changing into the new attire, compared to the original dress that she was wearing. Nodding his head in satisfaction, he told her, try these other dresses, too. While she was trying out the clothes, he picked a few more. There's no need to, this dress is good enough, she protested instinctively. Go and try them, he barked. It was a direct order. Since they were here shopping, he might as well fill up the closet space he left for her. As an obedient wife, she could do nothing except to follow his direct order. All the dresses that he selected suited her perfectly. She liked them all after trying them, and she did not know which one to pick for the final buy. Just as she was troubling over this, he waved his arm and indicated that he would get them all. Mu Huan. 6 of these dresses would cost more than 60,000 yuan. What a brat. She tugged at his elbow and whispered softly, hubby, don't you find these dresses to be similar? There's no need to have similar clothes. Let's just choose one among these. Yes, these do look rather similar. She said, nodding in quick succession. Just when she thought that he was agreeing with her view to select only one of these. He had his card swiped in one stroke. Mu Huan. Dot. Haven't we agreed that we would just choose one because these are similar? She muttered feebly. These all look nice on you. Although the styles of these dresses were similar, there were still differences in colors, hence, his wife presented a different kind of beauty while dressed in each. He was very satisfied with all of these dresses. Mu Huan. Dot. She was rendered speechless. Subsequently, she dared not cast a glance at other clothes, too worried that her Taheo one husband would splurge needlessly with every outfit that she looked adoringly at. She planned to leave him one day and should not splurge using his money. Isn't there anything else you'd like? After going through one floor of stores without buying anything, he felt like he was wasting his time, somewhat. She said with a nod. He frowned. Hubby, I'm hungry. Let's go and eat something. Clinging to his elbow, she signaled that she wanted to leave the mall. Glancing at his watch, he said, it's only 3. I haven't had my lunch yet. I'm famished now. Tilting his head to gaze up at the upper story, he said, let's have something upstairs. We can continue our shopping after that. Mu Huan. I don't like the food offered upstairs. I want to have a meal at Jin Din Xian. To prevent him from shopping further, she opted for a restaurant that was a few kilometers away from any shopping malls. Why don't you allow me to buy something for you? He asked her out of the blue. Startled, she looked down only to feel his broad palm stopping her. His slender and long fingers pinched her chin and forced her to look him in the eyes. She did not know what to say. This man was simply too smart for her to handle. She did not get exposed in the past because they spent too little time together and it was only at night that they saw each other. Now, she could easily be exposed by spending time together like this. He patiently waited for her to speak.